Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Brazos River Saints podcast.
Yes, we're here at the Brazos River Saints
Podcast.
Excuse me.
I've got Brother Mosher, Brother Randy Mosher with me today.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to have you on.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful day.
It is a fantastic day.
It is.
So I've had an opportunity, both of us, we went and had some lunch together.
We did at Randy's.
At Randy's. It was really good. It was really good.
We made the right decision.
And Brother Mosher has regaled me with great tales of awesomeness. And
goodness.
That's what the podcast is about, though, is just to share who we are. And I'd like to, before we even start, so I asked him if he wanted to be on the podcast, and he said, well, what do I talk about? And I said, well, it's just a chance to talk about yourself. This is your chance to tell everyone who you are. And he said, well, I'd really just like it to be about my family.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be neat. So you can talk about whatever you'd like today.
Okay.
Normally, I will normally start these out with just saying, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from.
Okay.
What got you here to Texas?
Okay.
If you're not already from Texas.
No. But I've been to Texas longer than any place else in my life.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much guaranteed to be a Texan at that point.
I am.
Right?
I am.
Yeah.
So I was born, I'm the ninth of 10 kids. I have 3 half brothers and 4 half sisters and 2 blood brothers. And we were raised Army brats. So I started out in Greeley, Colorado, and then we moved to Kansas, eastern Kansas, and then we moved to El Paso, Texas, was where I first started in Texas. And then we moved to San Diego, California, and then we moved to New York, and then we moved to Italy, northern Italy, in Vicenza, Italy. And then we came back and we moved back to Colorado, and then we moved to Georgia, and then we moved to Maryland, and then we moved back to Colorado, and then we moved back to Maryland, and then we moved back to Colorado. Then I graduated from high school, and I joined the Marine Corps, and I went to California, and then I went to Florida, and then I went to Spain for 3 years, and then I went back to Colorado, and then I got kind of out of the military and on my own, and worked a lot of different stuff. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm an engineering manager by trade, and I built some really cool things in my life. One of the things that I worked on was when I was in the Marine Corps, I worked for NSA. And everybody knows what NSA is, but they really don't know what NSA is.
The National Security Administration?
Yeah, yep, that's what it is. It's in Fort Meade, Maryland, which is just up from Baltimore. And it's named after the Civil War General Meade. Mm-hmm. And it's where all of the secrets go. So I sat inside of an antenna called a woolly weber, and it was a round antenna. It was a mile across the middle of that antenna. It was a mile to walk.
The radius was a mile then.
Yeah, radius is 1 or the whole thing?
The diameter was 1 mile.
Yeah, diameter was a mile, and right in the middle of it was a building. But the mile was set up by 180 high frequency receivers and 180 low frequency receivers. And from that spot in southern Spain, I used to copy Russian military traffic all over the world. And we would copy it, and other places around the world would copy it, and we would shoot directions, because you have to have 3 degrees to shoot from to get a direction finding, because those 3 things will come to a little triangle, and someplace where that little triangle meets on the earth, whatever you're listening to copy is in that little triangle, and that's how you shoot the fix of a Russian Tu-95 Bear bombing craft, or a Russian Soviet nuclear submarine, We shot those. We shot a lot of stuff from where we were at, and we copied it and we sent it to Fort Meade every day. And if you got a certain kind of a signal, so back in the day when everything was still top secret back in the day. It's not anymore because the building I used to work in is gone. But back in the day, everything was top secret. We weren't supposed to talk about anything. But there was two types of communications. There was instant communications, and there were stack or convergent communications. And what ended up happening was, at the end of World War II, we sent all our guys into Germany, and the Russians sent all their guys into Germany. And we got a bunch of astronaut guys that came back and built missiles for us, and the Russians got astronaut guys that built missiles for them. They also had signals intelligence guys that built things that they were used to make things that they transmitted you couldn't tell what they said. So the Russians sent burst coding. So a signal would come up on the frequency spectrum someplace, and it would put out a carrier wave. It would put out fast waves. It would put out 10 5-character sets of information. It would put out slow waves. It would send out another carrier wave, and then it would come off the air. And the guy sending that signal and all the people communicating that signal were on different frequencies at exactly the right time. In fact, if you listen to one and code it up on a big drum that we recorded on that were about the size of this table and they were round, when you heard one, it would sound like just like that. Sounds like almost like a burp and a cough, but it goes just like that. And they call it, the secret word that you use for that, according to the NSA, which is a top secret code word that I tell you, is cozy.
So, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I don't want you to get in trouble for sharing top secrets.
Oh, I won't. But it was top secret code word, and the code word was cozy. And it was all about instant signals transmission, and the Russians could send some up and it would be off the air. So we had to copy every track of air that was open. Meanwhile, the Americans were in a period of time where for several years, like about 4 years, we went with burst transmission, which means you don't know how big one bit is, because when you're looking at communications, it's like a computer. You got bits, you got bytes, you got stuff like that. A 234, 225, 237 was a kind of a bit pattern that was sending like spaces. If you're a Russian submarine and you're off the coast of Cuba and you've gotten there floating down the coast of the United States and not getting caught, the only place that's caught you is a place like mine that I worked at in Spain, and a place in England did it, and a place in Saudi Arabia did it, and a place in Korea did it, and Italy did it, and France did it. And so you had these stations all over the world that would copy communications, burst communications. So the thing that the United States still does is we code and change and vary how wide one bit is. If you can't give the measurement in milliseconds of how long one second is on and not off, then you can never measure one bit, and you can never come up with a code to come up with a byte. You can know it's a bit of intelligence, but you don't know if it's an A, a B, a C, a D, or anything.
Right. It's information.
It's information. So the only people in the world that learned how to do this were the Americans. And it was from the Germans that we stole it in World War II and how they were looking to do. So we have high-speed burst transmissions, which is sent out real quick. but it sounds like when it's up there because it doesn't matter how long it stays up on the air because you can never figure out how much one bit is.
That's
so you can never break it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your service in the military.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sorry.
No, it sounds like you had it. It's not. No, it's fine. It sounds like you had a really cool experience.
It was cool. In fact, when I was living in, one of the things I've been doing lately is I've been doing a lot of bullfight research and stuff. And the greatest bullfighter in the world when I was in Spain is a guy named El Cordobes. He's now 94 years old and he still fights bulls.
Wow.
But he is the greatest bullfighter that ever. Manolet was the old-time greatest bullfighter, but El Cordobes is the greatest bullfighter to live nowadays.
Interesting.
And yeah, the things that he used to do is pretty cool. I tell people this sometimes. I saw him in 1980, just before he retired, and he would take the picks, and they're 18, usually about 12 to 18 inches long, and somebody comes up and they run beside the bull and they stick him in his back right here.
Right.
And that's just starting to start cuts on that big muscle that's here, because the next guy on a horse will come with a big spike and he'll come to cut this muscle, because this muscle on the back of a bull's neck here is what holds his horns up. If you cut that muscle, he can't pick up his neck. He can't get his horns up. And if you can't get his horns up, you can't get your sword over his horns, and you never end up killing him. So this kid was 14 years old when he first became a matador. And he would break those little sticks off that they were running around sticking in the backs of bulls, and he would put them in his mouth, and he would come out across a big bull ring. Madrid has the largest bull ring, I think, right now in the world. Mexico City has a bull one, and Sevilla, Spain, which is in southern Spain, the Barber of Seville and all that. The name of that town is actually Sevilla. It's spelled with two L's, E-L-L-E at the end of it. Sevilla has a big bull ring. And the bigger the bull ring, the more dangerous and deadly it is, because the farther the matador has to run to get to the banks on the sides of it in case that bull's after him. So we were at Sevilla that day. We were watching El Cordobes, and he's coming out and he's doing good. He's probably about 50, maybe 53 at that time. But he sticks these sticks in his mouth right like this, and he puts his hands on his hips, and he stands out in the middle of the bull ring looking at this bull. And of course, Spanish bulls won't attack you on their own, because the bull has never seen a man. That's why he attacks you. But he'll get out there till that bull starts running at him. And when that bull starts running at him, he starts running at that bull. And the bull runs at him, and he runs at the bull. And when they get right next to each other, he reaches out like that with his hand. He puts it on that bull's head and nose, and he goes up in the air, and his head comes down, and he plants those two sticks out of his mouth into that big hump of muscle that bull has on his back. And as he comes over, he flips and he lands on his feet behind that bull, and then he runs away. And that's how he does that. And that was tremendous at the time, because nobody that was a bullfighter ever did anything like that. So he did a lot of crazy things when he was growing up, and he changed the art of bullfighting. So I've been doing a lot of research on him, and I did a lot of research on Abraham Lincoln, because I found out in my home thing that he's my 8th cousin.
Oh,
that was
awesome.
always really cool.
That's neat.
So once a year, I'm not sure how much you guys like history, but I'm just talking because I talk a lot.
Well, no, that's fine. I don't think anyone's going to be concerned about it.
Okay.
Like, what's Brother Mosher going to talk about next? Let's hear it. This is great.
So, in the United States, on the year that a new president is elected, and this year we've got Donald Trump. On that year, there are a lot of people whose jobs in the government line up with what they do, but part of their job is they get to take stuff home. Like the one that's real good is the White House barber. So the White House barber, who's now active, has lots of hair. And his hair is tested through DNA testing to make sure that it's true. And every 4 years, when a new president comes in, this group of people that collect and screen things and test things and prove that they're real are allowed to sell them. And they go on eBay and they start selling stuff. So what you can pick up on eBay if you work the sales is some really interesting things. One of the things I picked up last week was pretty interesting. It's a postcard like this, and it's covered in white sticky plastic stuff. And on one side, it's got a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and on this side, it's got a picture of John F. Kennedy. And Abraham Lincoln, under his plastic, has a little piece of black hair. It's about 1 inch long, and it's Abraham Lincoln's hair. And it's under the plastic on the thing that you just bought. And it's on his picture. And here's Kennedy. And in front of Kennedy's, there's a little ring circle right there. And on the picture of Kennedy, when he and Jackie are sitting in the car that he got shot in Dallas, it shows where that tuft of his hair is on the door of that car. And it's circled and it's moved onto this card you just bought, and you get it with a DNA profile that says this hair was John Kennedy's, and it was on him the day he was shot. What else comes on that one is a little piece, the material that car is covered in is black nog hide kind of stuff. It looks like leather, but it's not real leather, but it's black. That car is coated inside with a black, like thin leather. And when you see that picture that they're selling you, there's a little white dot on the dash of that car in the one picture, and then there's the little dash that shows where that black piece of leather that was on that car is now moved to over here, and you can see another picture of it when the car was processed again by the Secret Service. There's a piece of black leather laying on it right there. And so what the guy who cleans cars gets to do is keep anything he finds in those cars. So he's got that piece of black leather that came off the car that Kennedy was in, and he's got Kennedy's hair that came off the car that Kennedy was in. And they're both DNA treated to be true. So I bought a little card, and on one of them, it's got Abraham Lincoln. It's got a piece of his hair. And on the other side is John Fitzgerald Kennedy. It's got a piece of his hair, and it's got a little piece of the leather of the car he was sitting at.
I didn't realize you could pick up things like that.
Yes, and if it's your job, it's part of your job. If you're the guy that does the hair, you can pick up a bucket full of hair every day. And they pick up quite a bit of it.
I bet.
So you can get I got one a couple of weeks ago that's got Jackie Kennedy and a piece of her hair, and John Kennedy and a piece of his hair. I got one that's got Abraham Lincoln and a piece of his hair. And then it's got a little thing with Abraham Lincoln that if you don't know history, you might not figure out how it works. But it's got a little piece of black dirt that's sealed under the plastic that it's sealed in. And the black dirt has been tested DNA or RNA to make sure that it's true. And it's a little piece of black dirt that they took off of the bottom of Abraham Lincoln's shoes when they buried him the second time. The little piece of black that's on a little piece of string is dirt that came off of his shoes from his first grave, where he was buried in the dirt before his final burying in dirt. They took his body and they put it on a train, and they took it all over the United States and finally buried it. But before that, they found all the dirt that was on the bottom of his shoe, and this guy owns it. And 4 years, for every 120 years, for 4 years, he's been able to sell some. Cost me $86 on that one. It was a pretty big bid, but it's got Abraham Lincoln's hair, the dirt off his shoes, and it's pretty cool stuff.
Well, things I just learned today, right now.
I'm sorry. I am talking.
No, it's good. It's fine. So you tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes.
I mean, because you said, I wish this could be about my family. So tell us, give us some insight.
So I have a lot of tragedy in my family. I'm not going to get into all the who shot who and who murdered who.
Okay.
But one thing that's really interesting about my family is that my grandmother, my mother's father's mother, is a Native American priestess. She is a Kiowa priestess. She was born in Missouri, and she married a Englishman named Keatley when she was about 15. And then she went across the plains and did all kinds of stuff, got drafted or left out. She ended up in a logging orphanage in Denver, working there for a while till she went up into the mountains and she found my grandfather up there, and they got married and blah 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 blah. But the thing that's real cool about my grandma May, we call her, is that she's a Kiowa princess. And so she's got a lot of stuff that goes with her about that. And she got a lot of really cool stories that she tells about growing up and living with the Indians, living with the white man, living in an orphanage, doing this, doing that. She's got a lot of really cool stories.
Right.
So that was just one of kind of an interesting handful of stories.
That's neat.
Yeah, she's a 100% Kiowa. And it's really funny because I always told people she was Missourian, because Missouri is a type of Indian,
right?
And she would always say, "I'm from Missouri," and I always thought, "Oh, she must be a Missouri Indian." And no, she's not. She was born in Missouri, but the type of Indian she is Kiowa, and there was a lot of Kiowa right here where we are sitting, because Comanche Kingdom and Comanche Peaks up here, and this part of Texas had a lot of Kiowa people in it. So that's kind of interesting that your grandmother was a Kiowa princess.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's really neat. So what about, I'm assuming you've got some brothers and sisters?
I do. I have three brothers that have the same father, and I have 3 sisters that have the same father. And I have 2 brothers that have the same mother and the same father, and I have 3 sisters that have the same father and different mothers. So that's why I'm the 9th of 10 children. And my sister, who's living with us right now today at this moment, but she's living down the road a little bit. She just came here. She's the 10th of 10 children.
Wow.
So she got a lot of big brothers and stuff in her growing up, and I have a lot of, I don't know, just different stuff that kind of came and went in people's lives over the years, and a lot of stuff that come and went in kids' lives. But lately, I've been going through a lot of pictures and stuff, so I'm capping out on a lot of old stuff, and it's cool to always cap out on old stuff, especially when you start to see pictures of this woman that every other picture you're seeing of her, she was in her 50s.
Right.
And now you can see her as a 6-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, wow, she is a little Indian. You know what I mean? So that's kind of cool to see that different doge, that different kind of life, and to grow up around them and how they talk to each other and what was right and what was wrong and what was good and what was bad. And how much they all love the earth, and they all love their family, and they all love God, no matter how they spell him. He comes out to 3 letters that we all understand.
Mm-hmm.
They love God, Christ, they love their family, they love a lot of things like that. They worked hard and they lived hard. They did a lot of kind of crazy things. If you think about, isn't it good I'm not doing that? Because they worked really hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They worked really, 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 really hard.
Yep, they did.
Yeah.
Yep. My grandpa, I know this is supposed to be about you, but
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
So there's 40 acres up in Star Valley, Wyoming, up in the little town of Turnerville, Wyoming, which is anyway. there were 40 acres, and they had my great grandfather had a sawmill, and he said, hey, if you clear up this 40 acres, you clear off the pine and give it to us so we can saw it up, then you can keep the property. And he said, okay. Now this was before chainsaws, man. This was like, so he got out there with an axe and he cut 40 acres of trees down with an axe. But when he was done, he owned the property, right? Like, I mean, they worked hard back then.
That's cool.
A lot harder than I am. That's for
sure. Pretty cool. Now, why was it? Do you know why it was 40 acre?
Well, that's because that was the Homestead Act, right?
Yes.
So you could fence off 40 acres and you could keep.
And we were going to give all the endangered people 40 acres and slate, 40 acres and a horse, right?
Right.
So why is it 40? So a tract like that is 40 acres because it's a quarter of a section. There's 40, 40, 40, 40. So a section is 100
1 square mile,
and
right?
A section is 100 and 20, 40, 60, 20, 80 feet, or what am I thinking?
Acres.
So
I messed it up. So
no, you're all right.
Okay.
You're all right. So it'll cut down to a quarter section.
Yeah.
And a section is 1 mile by 1 mile. So a piece of land that's a mile by a mile is a section. There's 640 acres in the section. So if you cut that 640 by 4, you get 110 or 100, whatever. You get a quarter of a section. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to pull out a quarter of a section because you know exactly how long that line is.
Right.
If you don't go, okay, I'm going to give you another acre, or I'm going to give you another half acre, because then your plotted mats don't keep straight lines.
Right.
So it goes, it's cool.
Well, I just learned something new again right now.
What?
What? With the section and quarter thing. That's what I just learned all.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I love it. I love the history. It's awesome. Okay, so what about, you've got your own kids?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about them.
Okay, so I got married at 19 when I was in the military, and I was married to a Marine Corps woman. So when I was married, I had 3 children. I have 3 daughters. The oldest one's name is Amy, and the middle one is Amanda, and the youngest is Ashley Lauren. So I have 3 girls. They're all named A, and that's kind of a family thing too. My mom had 3 kids. She named them all with the A. Her sister, my Aunt Donna, had 3 kids. They were all always with the B, Bob, Bob. My Uncle Larry, her brother, had 3 boys. Then they're Tom, Tim, and Ty. And so my family has this Rusty, Ronnie, and Randy, or me and my brothers.
You really love alliteration.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We all have, Amy, Amanda, and Ashley are my 3. So everybody names their kids so they sound kind of alike a lot in my family. I don't know why they do it.
Right.
But they do it. And so I got out of high school on June 16th, 1975. And I went off and went to Coors Brewery, and I drove kegs of beer around for a while. And then that fall, after the big meal in November, I went off to the Marine Corps in San Diego, went to boot camp there. And then I came out of boot camp and went to A school in Florida. And then I went to Italy to live for several years and copy Russian traffic. My brother Ron went in a year before me, and he went into, what do you call it? When you arms, when you pick up bombs that other people have left.
Right. I know. Ordnance.
Ordnance
disposal. Yeah.
My brother went to Huntsville, Alabama, to go to how to take away blowing up stuff school, and unfortunately, he's a really nice guy. He died this month. He died 3 years ago, and it was here. He moved to Texas from Colorado. He did die a few years ago, and I spent an hour and a half giving him a real nice eulogy of what he had done in his life. And that was my brother Ron, and he's here. He's got a wife from England that he was married to, Margot, and he's got a son who I don't think Andrew is a mechanical kind of guy. He's a blue collar kind of guy. He's good at. My brother was a mechanical kind of guy. He could do car engines. He could do engines of any kind that would work.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught his son how to do that, and they're both pretty good mechanics. And then I have an older brother named Rusty, and Rusty kind of disappeared about. Donna and I have been together for 13 years, and Rusty disappeared about 6 or 7 years ago. And he bought. I don't know if I should say that. My brothers were going to go into an RV park.
Okay.
They were going to go into an RV park, which was on family-owned land that my great aunt Sarah, coming from England, had homesteaded back in the 1800s. And it was on a mile of the Eagle River from left to right. The river was a mile long. And those brothers of mine wanted an RV park, but they didn't have any money, and neither one of them ever had a job. So I went down to the bank and I pulled out $30,000 and I gave it to my brother so he could have a down payment to buy this RV park.
Right.
I've never seen him since. I've never seen him since then. But the last I heard, he's up in Missouri somewhere.
It's good you can laugh at it. Because I tell you what,
and it was one of those things where you give him something because he's your brother, and you know that his time in the Navy was a long time ago, and he didn't really make anything out of it in terms of knowledge, and he never. I think he did go to school because I paid for him to go to Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida,
mm-hmm.
and I paid his dues so he could graduate and get a degree. So he did have some sort of degree at one time or another, but it wasn't one on staying working.
Gotcha.
It's funny because I got a call from a guy in this big lake in Missouri, near where all the country stars go. He called me up. He said, "Your brother is here, and he's had a stroke." I'm like, "That's good. I haven't seen him in 7 years." Blah blah blah. Well, I don't want him working for me anymore because he never leaves. So anyway, he ended up getting a stroke, and he palled around for a little while, and he's run all over East United States trying to see if he could find somebody that was one of our brothers or one of our sisters or one of our cousins out of the 11 of us who had something he could go stay at. I'm not so sure, but I think he's still probably looking for me. I'm not sure where he's at. I'm not sure where he's at. God bless him.
Well, it's in my opinion, it's good you can laugh at it, right?
I know.
I mean, wow.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
So you told me some really cool stories this morning.
Oh, okay.
Incredible stories. But before we get to that, I have another question.
Okay.
Is what about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes.
What is it about this church that I haven't? First of all, did you grow up in the church, or did you join the church later? And if so, why?
My mom was a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
My dad that raised me was a Catholic. What are the little boys that mess with
altar boy?
He was an altar boy.
Right.
He got kicked out of being an altar boy for stealing wine out of the church.
Oh.
My dad that raised me was an orphan after World War I. His father died out of mustard gas in World War I, and he and his sisters and his brother all went to be, what are those people called? When they have a whole bunch of kind of kids, but they're not really their kids. They don't adopt them.
Oh, yeah.
Foster kids.
Foster kids, right.
So we had grandfathers in that were older men that my dad, up till he was 4, my dad went to school till he was in 4th grade. And he got out of school at the end of 4th grade, and he went into the Army when he was 15. And then he became a cook in the Army, and he was a cook for 26 years. And then he retired and was a cook someplace else, I guess. But he was a kind of cool guy, and he was raised by some strange families in Wisconsin. And they were just different kind of people. But my dad was an altar boy, and he knew all the Catholic words that went into Catholic prayers, and he knew it's not Catholicism. It's the language is called like priest talk in it.
Latin?
Yes.
Okay.
The language is Latin that my father was raised in, and my father just wanted to be in the military, so that's what he did. So when I was in high school in Maryland, I had a trig analysis teacher. His name was Mr. Bob Emmons, and his father was a Baptist preacher.
Okay.
And when I was in 10th grade, I met Mr. Emmons, and he had a little room in the back of his room. There was a physics teacher on the other side, and I was the physics teacher's classroom assistant. I graded all his papers and stuff. But I'd sit in there talking to Bob Emmons, and he would always talk about Jesus and God. And he was a Baptist. He was a son of a Baptist. He loved God. He loved Christ, and they did all kinds of Baptist stuff. One of the things he did was out in Maryland at a place called Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis. So Wabasa, Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis. Wabasa is a place where they have a giant summer camping place for all the Baptist kids that live in those three states.
Okay.
It's on the banks of the Potomac River. So at the end of my 10th grade, my family had lots of kids and not a whole lot of things to do with them. So Mr. Emmons asked me if I wanted to go to Bible camp all summer.
Okay.
And I said, yeah. He's okay. Well, if you do, you have to cut the grass, you have to do all the dishes, you have to cook all the food, serve all the people, blah, blah. And beside that, all day long, you have 12 8-year-old boys that you are going to be the master of, and you're going to take them and do things with them and keep them from getting drowned in the Potomac River. So I became a camp counselor for all these little Baptist kids. And I learned how to pray, and I learned about God, and I learned about Christ, and I learned about Christian people. Mm-hmm. And they were good people, and they taught me good things. And then when I got out of that summer, I went back and I went to the 11th grade. And when I got out of the 11th grade, I came back and I went back to Camp Wabasa. And while I was at Camp Wabasa, who gave up? The president that walked away.
Nixon?
Nixon walked away. So that was a big thing about everybody that was in that part of the country. We weren't far from Washington, D.C., and all the people that were there with their kids, they knew that the president had walked away, and things were looking crazy in that part of the country. And a lot of them came and got their kids and took them out of camp and did this and did that with them. Everybody was afraid. Everybody was afraid of what was happening in the country, and they were afraid that their kids weren't home. Everybody that worked at the camp was kind of afraid of what was going to happen in the country. And we just wanted to be kind of together. So we remained together for that week, and then we gave it up. But that's kind of how I stopped being a Baptist Christian counselor, was that the country fell apart.
Huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody came and took their kids, and somebody had to come take me because I couldn't even drive. And right. I was probably about 250 miles from home at that time. But I did call my mom, and she sent my dad down to get me, and I got out of it and went to my senior year. Oh my Lord. I went to my senior year. But along the way, I joined the Marine Corps. I went to work at Coors Brewery, I
Okay.
joined the Marine Corps, and when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in Spain, and I had some what are they called? My mom was one, Jehovah's Witness, and I like Jehovah's Witnesses. They're real strong in what they believe. They'll read a Bible, and that's what they won't have anything in there that you don't understand why it's in there. They're very black and white on what they're talking about and why they're talking about it. And if it's black and white in the Bible, they're going to be black and white about it.
Right.
They're very focused on what they want to do, and they don't do anything they don't seem to do anything that's wrong. But so I met up with some Jehovah's Witnesses when I was living in Rota, Spain, and they would come over, and they were American GIs that had got out for not wanting to do military stuff and carry weapons and stuff like that. So they stayed in Spain, and they were coming and finding American military guys that were in Spain that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses or Catholics or something. They would come over to your house several times a week, and you do Bible studies, and they would tell you stuff, and they would hit you with some stuff that you at one time in your life might have thought that didn't sound right, but once you become an adult, you can listen to something and hear what somebody's saying to you, and it doesn't have to be something that you read. You could feel that the Holy Ghost could talk to you.
Right.
And that's one thing I did learn from the Jehovah's Witnesses. With the Holy Ghost is not just a thing that come out in a Walt Disney movie. It was something that came out and could be with you and could be around your life. If you live right, it could be around your life, and it could be helping you and pushing you along a godly path.
Right.
And that's one thing I did learn good from them. And so then the Jehovah's Witnesses came out. But the Jehovah's Witnesses have a lot of things that they do believe in, which even to this day kind of make me stir my stomach a little bit. Like, what? Like not getting together for Easter, not all the things that they do.
Right.
There's reasons behind them in words, but they're missing some of the conjugatives and stuff. So anyway, long story short, I found there's a kid, his name was Dar Peace, Elder Dar.
Okay.
P-E-A-C. Anyway, he came knocking at my door. I was living outside Golden in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. I was working for Lockheed. He come knocking at my door one day, and I opened the door, and he was 19, and I was probably about 30 at that time. And he wanted to tell me a little bit about God. And I was kind of being big on myself, which I shouldn't have been. Because I'm like, you're 19 and you want to tell me something about God when I've been Baptist, I've been Lutheran, I've been Episcopal, I've been, and I studied a lot of languages, even some Eastern languages. But I just wanted to kind of put it up on the wall. But I've read a Bible, and I don't think you're going to tell me anything on the Bible. I don't know what. So this guy is a real cool guy. So he was with me on a Wednesday night, and he left, and I got a phone call from him the next day, and he's like, well, I want to come spend Wednesday with you again. And so I'm like, okay. And so he did, and we started reading the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
And every week we would get together. I'd fix dinner, and there'd be him, and he's usually have two partners with him. There'd be three of them. And I would fix dinner for these guys every Wednesday. And then after we would eat dinner till about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, we would answer my questions from last week that I'd gotten from reading the Book of Mormon. And I had a lot of questions.
Right.
And it went kind of like this. We would have a meeting, we'd talk, he'd read the thing talking about horses, blah, blah, blah. I'd say, horses aren't supposed to be in America yet, blah, blah, blah. And I had all this stuff that I thought I knew. What I didn't know is that I didn't know anything really. What I didn't know was I didn't listen to what was being told me. So this kid started taking home a little sheet of papers with all the notes I had asked him this week. And next week, then I'd take him home and I'd tell him, I'm going to pick you up next Wednesday and we'll go have dinner. And then we're going to cover the questions on this sheet.
Right.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. So the next Wednesday, that's what we would do. And he'd come over to my house. We'd talk all those questions. Then we'd read the Book of Mormon.
Right.
The next Wednesday, I go pick him up. I bring him to my house. We'd eat. We'd study all the questions from last week. We'd read the Book of Mormon. The next Wednesday, I go pick him up and pick his friends up, read them over. We'd feed. We'll answer all the questions that I had. We'll start reading the Book of Mormon and doing it again. We did this for 10 months.
Okay.
He came to my house every Wednesday for 10 months. After about a month of him coming over, so 4 weeks had went by.
Right.
And he had some of his buddies with me, and we were sitting there, and we ate dinner, and we came in, and we're talking about questions. Well, okay, that's the questions. And then all of a sudden, what we hadn't been doing for the last 10 months was him ask a question. And now it's my turn to go figure out if I could find an answer to that questions. And that's when things started changing.
Okay.
So he started asking me questions that night. And I had no clue what the answer was. What I did know is I didn't know.
Right.
I knew I didn't know. So I looked at him and said, I don't know. We're going to have to cover that. And he said, I tell you what we're going to do. You come down to the end of 58th Street up here on Sunday, and we'll start going to church. And they'll have some answers for you too. So he invited me to church. And so I went down there, and the first day I went in, I went all day. It was long hours. It was long sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started with the long sessions. We did, this is the Inquirer. This is all the facts about being an inquirer. This is all the facts about, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Christ? Do you believe all the basic tendencies of the church and of God and of where we live and what the world is. All those things were being covered, not necessarily by all these missionaries that I came to know, because I came to know 30 or 40 of them.
Right.
But by the people that were already in that church teaching the classes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just another guy in the class, and I would come in, okay, here we go. The next thing you know, if you do that for about a month, the elder goes in and he leaves you sitting there for your, introduction class, and he goes off and meets with the bishop and the elders quorum president and the women's president, and they all go off and have another big meeting over the other side of the church, and I'm still down here having this learn the gospel meeting. And so pretty soon I say, what's going on? How come you're not over here where I'm at? He's like, oh, I know all that. I'm working the stuff. We got work to do. I'm like, what do you mean got work to do? So after a while, I kind of fell into that. I fell into that position where what I needed in my life was being put there.
Right.
Because I wasn't married. I was a single guy. I was doing a lot of work. I was traveling. I was going all over the world. Like when I wanted to go someplace, if they had scuba diving, I'm pretty much on my way there. So I did a lot of crazy stuff like that.
Right.
And, my girls would come and spend the summers with me and blah, 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 blah. So when my girls, the second summer that they were coming, my girls were there, and my girls would come for 3 months. And my girls would come when there was a lot of missionary boys around.
Oh, right.
And they were all teenagers. And
that's when they liked the missionaries.
Yes, right? They started loving the missionaries. Yes, they loved the missionaries. So that was kind of cool. And things just grew from that. And then Elder Dar was going to go. He was going to go to western Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
The last town out west is Fruita. And he was going to go out there. And I'm like, well, this isn't very good because, I'm not done here yet.
Right.
I mean, I thought I was going to get baptized here. And Dora's like, well, I told the bishop that you were going to get baptized. You never came forward. Like, okay, well, long story short, he went back and I wrote him a letter to his ward missionary guy or whoever's running the mission out there in western Colorado. I wrote him a letter. I gave it to my missionary, and my missionary took it out there, gave it to him. And the letter basically says, this is who I am. I've been studying the Book of Mormon. I'm on long sessions every Sunday, and I have been doing weekly meetings with your missionaries for 9 months. And I'm supposed to get baptized. So that's kind of what I said. I was thinking I was getting baptized, and Elder Dar said he had talked to the bishop, the bishop, and the bishop had said I had never asked. So I guess now I'm asking. And so what ended up happening, it was really cool if you think about it, because I wrote Dar another letter, and he wrote me a letter and stuff, and I said, let me talk to your missionary guys. Talk to the missionary guy. I said, okay, here's what we got. I says, when Dar left here, I promised him, no matter when it is, no matter how old you are, all you got to do is tell me where you are, and no matter where in the world you're at, I'll get you, and I'll bring you back here to Denver, and you can baptize me. And that's what I told him. And the mission took him away. So I called that missionary lead out there, and I told him he left 3 months ago. I haven't seen a missionary, and I'm still waiting on Dar to come baptize me. I said, do you think that that's going to happen? He don't know. Blah, blah, blah. So I talked to Dar. So Dar goes back and he talks to the mission. Okay. Then he goes to get the mission to say, we're going to let you transfer, because he wasn't supposed to go. It was like, I can't go beyond this line unless I'm with my partner. Because, yeah. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm 250 miles from this line. So I'm telling him the problem I'm having. And so he goes to his mission lead. And so the mission lead comes to see me in Denver. And he's like, well, this is what we're going to do. I believe that you want to get baptized, and I believe baptized should get, and I believe Dar should be out here baptizing. Okay, good. Let's get him. Let's go. Well, what's
holding you up here?
It didn't work either. Right. I didn't work either. So what ended up happening was I had to tell this missionary leader, I want to join a church. I want to do this. I'm in the church. I've been tithing for 6 months. I do all the stuff I'm supposed to be doing, except for I ain't got missionaries here to take care of me.
Right.
So he says, what we're going to do is we're going to give Dar a special letter. You get somebody with you that's either another adult male or a member.
Mm-hmm.
And you get in your car in Denver and you drive all the way out here to dang near to Utah to where he's at and pick him up on Thursday, such and such and such and such a time. And you bring him back to Denver, back to the mission place over in Denver where all the missionaries sleep. And you drop him off there with these three missionaries going to be there. And like, okay, so we went and picked him up on the other side of Colorado. We drove back over here. We took him downtown Denver where all the missionaries were. We dropped him off with about 5 missionaries. I didn't even know who they were. And he went in and closed the door. and a guy named Reggie, who was a guy that used to hunt with me, and me are standing there like, well, I guess that's the end of that. So we got out of there and we left. And then on Saturday, I got Dar over there, and he's like, "Well, we're gonna go baptize you." When? Right now. I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Okay, let's go. So that's how I got baptized.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is probably the most interesting baptism story I've heard.
It was pretty. It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny, and it was like, "Okay, we're ready to go. Let's go." I said, "Okay, let's go." It was funny.
That's
It
interesting.
was funny.
Interesting.
So, but you know what it did do though? It made me believe that no matter what the world had done to me or I had done to myself, that if I was on the right side of the people in this church, they would protect me.
Right.
And they would make sure I was all right. And they always have.
Right.
I love that. But that's how they baptized me. Oh, I got another thing to tell you.
Okay. All right.
On the day that I was walking down to the Arvada building, I knew that there was another Mormon building in that little area of the neighborhood.
Right.
So this time when I'm walking down there, because we're going to go down and get baptized, I stopped at that other Mormon church and I started reading all the blocks that are on that church. And I got real confused. And so I was probably about 3/4 of a mile from there to the other church I've been going to. So I go down to that other church I've been going to, and Dar's there, and I'm telling him, I'm down here at the wrong church.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "You're not at the wrong church. There's only one church here." I said, "No, I'm standing in front of a Mormon church, and there's nobody here." He's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm on 38th Avenue. Where at? On 38th Avenue. I'm like, "I'm at such and such and such and such." He says, "Oh, you're standing in front of the RLD Mormon church that isn't Mormons." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, they're reorganized.
Yes. Yes. He's like, "That's a different Mormon. Get on the street and keep coming." That's how I got there. And that's how I got there. Oh my goodness. I forgot about
funny.
that.
That's pretty funny.
I forgot about that. I got the wrong church.
That's funny. So you told me some really cool stories earlier. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm hoping that people are, when they're watching, they're like, "Man, Brother Mosher is just happy. He's just happy to be here."
I am.
But you told me some really cool stories. So tell us about your current situation. What got you there, and what has been
the alligator stuff?
Yeah, and what's happened to you since then?
Okay, so I was up in Colorado and I was shooting bears, and I just shot a bear. In fact, that his head and trunk and cloak and claws and everything is on my coffee table at my house right now. I just showed it to him. But anyway, long story short is, when I got back to Texas from that, I was going to go down to my beach house because I was going to go alligator hunting with on TV. There's a Discovery Channel called Swamp People. I think everybody and my brother has seen it.
Yep.
So a friend of mine is a guitar player. He's a good guitar player. He was in Nashville for about 15 years. He has 2 #1 hits, and he's a good Christian brother. I've been trying to get him to come to church, but he will eventually. I think, what's his name? Jan and Rich have been talking to him a lot, and he just went through cancer and had stuff cut out, and he's ready to join. But anyway, what was I telling you?
You told me that you were going to go down to your beach house.
Oh yeah, we're going to go down to the beach house because my buddy Jerry knew a guy named David, and David's father is one of the guys that catches alligators on the show.
Oh, okay.
His dad is the one from Texas that comes in the airboat and doesn't wear shoes.
Right. Okay.
Doesn't wear shoes. Barefoot.
Right.
That's his dad. So we're going to go catch alligators. Okay. So we go out to catch alligators. We catch 2. I've got a license for 2 alligators. And I think I got one for me and I got one from my brother. I call him my brother, Jerry. And me and Jerry are kind of like brothers because if he does his ancestry, he goes up the same chain to the exact same person that I have.
Mhm.
on the Mayflower.
Right.
This guy was on the Mayflower. Jerry's got him.
Yeah. Well, I've got Mayflower folks too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you start seeing other Mayflower folks and their
Yeah.
little names start showing up in
Yeah.
yours, they're like your brothers.
Yeah.
So that's how I call him my brother. So long story short, I was telling you something.
You're going to the beach house.
We're going to
go
beach house.
alligator hunting.
So we go to the beach house, we're doing our thing, and we leave his big garage and we go out and we catch 3 alligators.
Okay.
We take the 3 alligators back to his dad's house and we put them in the garage where they process all their alligators, and they're in there processing all their alligators. And then they say something like, we're going to go out again. And I'm like, I don't have any more licenses. I had 2 licenses. I had one for me and one for Jerry. And Jerry is in the cancer surgery room in Houston right now, in the big cancer place there. MD, whatever it is.
Right.
So I don't have a license to go get another alligator. I've already got 2. That's what my licenses are for. Okay, great, whatever. So anyway, long story short, we end up getting in the back of this boat. And we back out of his place into the canal. And we run down to the river. And then we start going back. And then it starts getting dark. And we start traveling backwards in the dark on dark water in the night with no light on the boat. And I can't see the light on the boat. I can't see where the boat's going. But as we're going, there's a bridge down there called Boondoggle something.
Okay.
As we're going, my head hits the concrete of the bridge at 45 miles an hour. And I don't remember being knocked out, but I do remember I had those pieces of metal that they put in concrete when they're building it.
The rebar.
Rebar.
Yep.
I had 2 pieces of rebar sticking out of my brain. One was sticking right here where this hole is, where they put it in with that brass.
Right.
And one was right here. And they were sticking up about 3 inches past my skull. And I was on the way in a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way in a helicopter, laying on a piece of wood, laying on a pallet. That I was on the left-hand side, and a black woman was laying on the right-hand side, and neither one of us had any clothes on. We had sheets on us, and they lifted us 7 feet in the air and poked us in the side of a helicopter. And they took us off to Galveston. And we got to Galveston. They took us to Galveston to the hospital. And all kinds of bad stuff started happening. All kinds of bad stuff started happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know what's going on. I just know that something bad has happened to me. And I need to start finding out what is happening to me. And I need to start asking questions. And the long story short gets to be the guy with no shoes, his son, my buddy, Jerry, calls me. I'm in the operating room in Galveston. And he says, I was just talking to David, and I said, you better call 911 and get an ambulance out there and get his ass to the hospital. And he said, just a minute. And he called his dad, who's on the show.
Right.
And his dad said, we don't have any insurance on that boat. So it got nasty and nasty and nasty, and things went south. Things went way far south. Like even the hospital people got nasty. The other people on the show got nasty. Everybody and their brother called me a bad name. I don't know why, but I became a bunch of bad names. But the long story short was I had to go get a big Houston lawyer. And I did. And I have a good friend of mine who is a heavy-duty lawyer here. He was the #1 lawyer in Tarrant County when he was here. And he looked this lawyer up and he says, you got a good lawyer. He's going to tear him up. He's going to do a good job. Great. Well, that doesn't get you off because it's now been 9 months. And the only thing that's happened in 9 months is somebody with some power has got you. And they won't let you out of a room. And they won't let you out of a scan. And they won't let you out of a, what is it when you got something that's, the neutrons are going between?
Yeah, the MRI.
Yeah, and you got radioactive stuff going on. A PET scan is radioactive. Yeah, I got it radioactive, and I'm and I'm trying to talk to people that are young. They're in their 20s, and they want to talk to me about stuff, and they want to sit there and tell me there's nothing wrong with you. Well, in 9 months, I have been able to go and find things. Like Donna went and found those records for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Donna went and got 500 pages, single line, single spaced, 556 pages of what they did to me in the emergency room in Galveston.
Right.
And in that, I started counting how many broken bones do you have in your head? So I started counting them this week. And yesterday, I counted page, whatever it is, 412. I think I counted that page. And there's 18 broken bones on that one page.
Wow.
And they're all in my head.
Yeah.
One of them is in my jowl, something, my right-hand side. My right-hand side got beat up.
Right.
My right-hand side got beat up. And when they couldn't get me to stop bleeding and they pulled all the little things out, they put in a big metal one. And they pushed it in through my head up behind my eye where that artery is, because there's 3 branches of artery that are coming into that one gap, and all 3 branches are bleeding as fast as those branches will bleed.
Right.
And it's filled the sinuses behind my eyes. It's filled the sinuses behind my nose. I'm bleeding everywhere. I'm dying. So I pulled all those things out and I put them down like this. And I was talking to somebody the other day. He said, "What's up?" Oh, I was talking to my guy that does my exercise stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's good to talk to because he is a Navy medic.
Okay.
He's a Navy medic that was a Navy medic at war, and he knows what happens on helicopters. But anyway, long story short, he's like, "What have you got there?" I said, "This is something I got out of my hospital record yesterday." He says, "Well, what are all these pieces of paper? Can you read all those?" That's all Scottish, or the words sound like they're coming at you in Roman or something, but it's medical words. Right. And I said, "I don't know what any of these words are, but I know every one of these little yellow pieces of paper you're seeing right here is a broken bone in my head."
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's 18 of them in there. And I know that because it came off one sheet of this 556 sheet book. And I have to take this down there and show them, this is what you did.
Right.
Don't sit there and tell my grandchild that I'm a liar and that you didn't hurt me. You did hurt me. You also took 11 years off my life. So all this stuff that I've been able to find, I've been racking up.
Right.
Because they told me, my lawyer told me, and I told you my other lawyer told me, he's a good lawyer, but what he told me was, you're not going to see a courtroom till probably Christmas. And when he told me that, I thought he meant Christmas last year.
You meant Christmas this year? Wow.
He said, you might get into a courtroom Christmas this year. But whenever you do get in, you're going to be the last person that the judge will listen to.
Right.
So make sure you go and find all this stuff. And every time they lie to you, write it down.
Right.
Because every time they lie to you, you write down and you say, well, here's where your website for this college says this. And you're telling me no.
Right.
Because every time you do that, they're going to have to pay you. And my lawyer is really cool because he gets a third of whatever I get.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Right.
So when I first met him, he's like, I got some bad pictures. I got a lot of bad pictures.
Right.
And he saw some of them. And the first thing he said to me when I seen him first time is he says, my God. He says, what I'm looking at is $3 to $5 million. But you never can tell what you're going to get because you don't know where they're hiding their money. And I'm telling him, well, the Discovery Channel better have some freaking money here. Because I got a $2 million hospital bill right now that I haven't paid.
Yeah.
So somebody.
Right. That's crazy. So you were telling me about the hospitals and you were telling me about the doctors. You were saying there's 16 that there's.
Oh, the doctor story.
Yeah, the doctor story. Yeah.
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 I can tell you the doctor story.
Okay.
I tell you, because that's one I'm real proud of. And Donna, usually I make Donna tell it with me because she's in it.
Right. She probably does a really good job of telling.
She does do a good job. So I got this doctor story, and I've told the bishop about it too. I haven't told a lot of people about it because I get so much hassle from these 20-year-old nurses and these little technicians. I get so much hassle from them that you have destroyed your brain and you have anger and you're not safe to be around and all this kind of stuff that they tell me all the time. So I don't really like to talk to them too much about it because most of them are too dumb to talk to. But what ended up happening was the sons started all that. So I was in a coma for 54 days. And as I laid in a coma bed in what's that town that's along the strip there?
Galveston.
Galveston. I was in a coma bed in Galveston. And Donna was sitting there with me because she's the only one that hung on.
Mm-hmm.
Like she said she would. She's my wife and I love her to death. She's been through a lot. But one day she talks to me and she says, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" And she was sitting with someone, one of her girlfriends. And I think Sharon, what's her name, that sits with her now in the church?
Oh, Sister Mills?
Yeah.
Sharon Mills. Yeah.
Sharon Mills is one of them that she's talking to. And she said, "What is it you do with your hands?" And I had been making a little pattern with my hand that looks like a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna will be like, "Well, what are you looking at?" And I told Donna, I said, "Well, if you look at that window right there, see how the sky's not gray like this, but it was nice and blue. This is back in September of last year." I said, "See how blue the sky is?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, look at that tree right there that's on the side of our house. See that? Mm-hmm. See that big limb that comes out of it right there on the bottom, kind of low?" Yeah. I said, "Look right over the top of that limb, right there. You see something? It's round and it's white. It looks like the sun, but it's probably a white star. And it sits over that limb right there." And Donna comes on and says, "Yeah, I see it." I said, "Well, if you look hard, there's 7 of them. There's one big one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 stars in the middle of the sky, right there above that, what you call it, and you can see them if you're out on a beach.
Mm-hmm.
You can see them in the sky."
Right.
And she says, "You see something on those stars?" Who holds on the phone? Who's on the phone?
Who's on the phone?
I'm not sure if I should tell this.
Oh, that's okay. If you're not comfortable telling it, then you don't need to share it. It's fine. Only share what you're comfortable sharing.
So I told her, I said, if you look at those stars coming up off the ground right over here on the right,
Mm-hmm.
where the blue come down, if you watch right there, you'll see him. And he'll walk up there, and he'll walk through the blue part right up to the top star. Then he'll climb that little round thing to the top. And then he'll sit down right there. And in about 30 seconds, he'll slide down the other side of that star. And there's a real bright light on the other side of that star. Mm-hmm. He'll slide down the other side of that star, and you won't see him again until about 2 or 3 minutes later. I'll stand on the top of that star right there, and I'll look down, and I'll see him. And then he'll go, and I'll go. And 5 minutes later, I'll go up to the next 7 stars. I'll wait till he gets on it, and when he slides over it, he lights up that star. And when I get to it, I look down, I see the light, and I see God, and I see Christ. They're on those 7 stars. And that's what I do when I do my hands like that. So Donna was telling Sister Milk this one time, because at Christmas time, we had a little skit in the church. And the guy had something he pulled out, and this is this, and this is this, and this is this. And at the end, he pulls out a candle. And he set that candle up and he turned it on, and that candle was putting out a bright light. It's way more than one candle. Mm-hmm. And it's shining on him. And I can see that same bright light that's on those stars. I can see it on that candle. Like that. And about right then, Donna taps me on the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I turn around and say, "What's the matter?" She said, "Sharon saw you." So I'm sorry. She said, "No, do not be sorry. She saw you looking at that candle. I knew what you were doing because I saw you looking at that candle." So I started telling that story to people.
Yeah, God is aware of us and knows us, right?
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah. He does. Yeah. And people don't know why you're coming back, but you're coming back because God is sending you back.
Right.
And then we got the thing from the prophet that said he's coming.
Yeah.
That's when we got that one.
Well, it's a miracle you're with us still. It's a miracle you're alive.
It is a miracle I'm alive, and I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it. All I know is if somebody that needs me, I'll help them. Because I know that's why I'm here.
Right. It's amazing. It's amazing how we can help others, even in our times of trial. I think is probably there's an opportunity for us to help in ways that we had no idea.
Yeah, you don't know it. Right. Until it just kind of sneaks up on you, and then it's like, bang, there it is.
Yep.
It's pretty cool, though.
It is really neat.
I love it, brother. I love you.
I love you too, Randy Mosher.
I do. I love you, Ben.
Well, I think we should wrap this up.
Okay. I'm sorry I took up all your time.
No, you didn't take up all my time. I have to say though, I think you're the longest person so far.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think you should apologize for that at all. I think it's going to be awesome. I think a lot of folks in our ward love you.
I think what you do is important, and I think you're a powerful man.
Yeah, well,
I do. I think there's
I don't know
power
about
in
that.
you.
I don't know about that.
I do. I know.
Okay. Well, brothers and sisters, that's it for me and Brother Mosher today.
Thank you, guys. We love you.
Yep. Thanks for watching us. And we'll be back hopefully next week if I can find someone to join us. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, guys.